What's happening, guys? We've got another Sunday scan coming at you, this time for Easter Sunday. I hope everybody had a great long weekend. We had Friday off, so that means that every time I talk about Friday, I actually mean Thursday, just in case I screw up once or twice or 10 times throughout this video. Couple things. First and foremost, we haven't had a sale in 5 or 6 months. We don't really do sales anymore. If you want to join, you join. If not, it doesn't matter to us. So we do have a sale. And if you're interested, it's a lower barrier to entry. It's a good time to join. Link will be in the description. And as you guys know, market's been on fire. There's just countless opportunities every single day. And really the biggest part is whether or not you've adapted as a trader. And a lot of people are actually having trouble adapting, but they know what they're doing. They know what to do, but it's just kind of hard to break those old habits. So that's been something that I've been very, verbal about, and kind of the adaptation process that I've kind of undergone, and what I see different today versus tomorrow, or last week versus next week, and things like that. So I do hope that it kind of comes across to you guys as I'm talking about these situations, because I feel like every single Sunday video kind of hits it on the head for the week ahead. And so hopefully it helps you. If not, then hey, you're still here, you're still watching. So last week we had an Icon Meals winner that was not in the US, so just a little housekeeping. Mr. McStew, you've got it for this week. Just email me, webmaster@investorsunderground.com. And then the IU t-shirts, all you have to do, leave a comment, key takeaway, timestamp. Patrick Warther, W-A-R-T-H-E-R, Jay Zimmerman, and Robert Zotter. Email me, and we'll ship you out the shirts. And thank you guys for commenting, liking the video. It's not that hard. Helps us, help you, and probably give some other traders aha moments with what you write. So appreciate you guys taking the time. Last week, finally had one of the craziest moves that we've had in a couple months. And yeah, I probably say that every week. But a lot of them are low float type names that I'm not going to have conviction size. This week we had one of those outliers that kind of just sneaks and catches people off guard, such as a Kodak, such as an AMC, such as a Clove, C-L-O-V, such as DWAC, D-W-A-C, right? Where all of a sudden you're like, how did I get here? And what was really great about, I think, last week is beyond P&L, beyond any of that, is the fact that it wasn't like before. I've been working extremely hard because personally I'm a stubborn trader. I know that about myself. I've worked on it for many, many years. And there's always that one that kind of catches you off guard, and you start to kind of size in the front side, and you add, and you add, and you end up in a situation where you're like, whoa, how did I end up here, right? That's been the biggest changes that I've made over the last couple of years, of not sizing on the front side. If I put on a little bit, that's fine. I'll go for a ride. I don't care. But I'm not going to use size on the front side of a move ever. It's just not worth it. It's not. I've had plenty of great trades in 2020, 2021. There's no reason for me to risk any of that for that next trade. For me, it's about being comfortable in the trade. For me, it's about the least amount of stress possible. And, all of that happens by being patient. Patience is what gives you the opportunity that most people give up. And what I mean by that is most people pre-exhaust on these trades. Most people step in front of these things and add, and blow up. So I feel like this was the first test that I've had since maybe a DWAC, an AMC, Clove, Kodak, all those, in quite some time. Sometimes when they come back to back to back, it's not that big of a deal because you're kind of prepared. You're nervous that the next one could be like that. It's when they come out of left field and, nobody's prepared. So I feel like VERU traded it exceptionally well. Yeah, I traded it the front side on the first day. And you saw that I stopped out a few times. but it was minimal versus the opportunity that was there. And, it's okay to stop multiple times when you're just on a starter on the front side of the move. What matters is, as you saw on that first day after 1350 exhausted, scaling into the winner and assuming that VWAP level is going to hold. And so that was a fantastic trade. Then another one later on in the day. Next couple days, huge unwind pre-market. And then on Thursday, which was the wild one, having that nice trade off the open, flush down, and then actually, kind of being out of the trade, anticipating that it was probably going to trap and ramp back. And we talked about that the night before. I said, anybody that's new, be cautious, because this is going to be one of those that will make you a believer. It's going to be fading, fading, fading. All of a sudden, it's $2 to $4, right? $2, rip, circuit halt, next $2. And that's actually exactly what happened. Unfortunately, I didn't get long, but I had covered. And, it should have stayed heavy, should have unwound. And the moment that it shifted from, ramp fail, staying, really heavy to, that should have stayed heavy there. That it's starting to kind of come back. There was about 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden, it was off. And so, you can go and have your one thesis, but as soon as that tape shifts, if it's got 100, 200, 300 million shares, you have to listen to it. And if you don't, you're going to be that person in the circuit halt. So the best part about that is, once again, not being exhausted, not being bent up on it, and being able to react after the circuit halt when everybody else is freaking out thinking 20. Guess what? I'm able to start into the position and do it again. So it was really, really awesome for me. And I don't even care about the P&L portion of it, just progressing as a trader. And the point here is that anybody can do it. You just have to put your finger on it. You have to be able to stop yourself when those signs come, and the moments where that you should have stopped out, or you shouldn't be there, or you're uncomfortable. You have to listen to that. And if you don't, that's going to be you. You're going to get bent up. And so the night before this, or 2 nights before, we have the main room, which is basically for, real trading during the day. And then we've got the Traders Lounge, which is for like the off topic, and traders can kind of talk back and forth. But started to see, the same kind of group of people doing the same thing over and over. Right? And always just adding and adding. Oh, yeah, I think it's going to pull back here. Okay, I think it's going to pull back here. Every day, as if it's a new day and it's going to change all of a sudden that day. Right? And it reminded me of something my broker had told me multiple years ago. This is probably, at this point, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. But doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? It's the definition of insanity. So I basically said that in the scan the prior night, and I said, guys, you got to look at like what you're typing. You got to look at what you're doing every single day. And each day you think it's going to be different. You're going to short this front side. You're going to add into that front side. You're going to add more into that front side. And then you stop out. You have to stop doing that and just let everybody else do it. And let everybody else exhaust. And let everybody else pay for that information. Otherwise, that's your career in front of you. It's gone. So sometimes you need that cold, hard truth rather than the sugarcoating. Like, oh, it's okay. Have a good stop. Whatever. No, you need to take a hold of it. And you can tell, in a situation like VERU, for example, right? I know a lot of people got bent up. And I'm sure a lot of people fought the trend, jumped in front of it. You can just tell by the number of trolls that start to come back out, right? Troll, you can kind of see read between the lines and kind of see who they are or who they're connected to. But you can see that when there's a situation like that where something that used to bend you up on a particular name, it's still bending them up, right? So what does that mean? It means that they just haven't adapted and doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. So you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. Otherwise, it's never going to end. I was honest with myself, and I stopped stepping in front of stuff. And if I do trade it, it's going to be a max of 10 or 20% on the front side so that I could withstand a big move. But if it stops doing what I expect, I move on. And I am the most patient, letting things just fail. Once they fail, I start to join on those pops. That's really the biggest piece of advice that I can offer to somebody that's looking to short, that's trading short, that's having trouble in this market. Is you have to be honest with yourself. And, it sucks. I hate to see people lose. But all the writing was there. All the writing was on the wall. We even talked about it ahead of time. And yeah, there's going to be slippage. Yeah, there's going to be times when you trade everything, relatively well, but you still get, punked. You still get hurt. But it doesn't have to be to that extent. It doesn't have to be every single day when you're trying to find the top. And I think that's very important. And, I want the trolls to be successful so that they don't have to do that. So they don't have to look for a way to kind of scapegoat on Twitter for their own poor risk management. And so I mean that sincerely. I really do hope that most people take it seriously and write it down on a Post-it or draw the lines out so that are you on the front side or the back side of the move? And sometimes that backside can trap, but you know where your risk is at least. And if you went in with a set risk, then you're okay. But when you're trading on the front side and you don't know where that thing's going to stop, you don't have a risk. So that could be, your best stop ever or really your last stop ever because your career is going to be done. So anyway, take trading seriously. It's not a hobby. And if you really want to make a career out of it, stop jumping in front on the front side of the move. Now again, I'm going to repeat this. Sometimes I will start in to get a feel for things, but I will not size on the front side of the move. It helps me being involved in a trade to get a feel for what's going on, which then allows me to get the read and the calls that, you see. That doesn't happen by just kind of pulling it up and just guessing. I watch the tape, I watch the action, I watch where the exhaustion moves come in, I let everybody else pay for that information, and then I start to get in there with more size. In ATER, you saw that same thing on Thursday. Each line, every time it goes up and creates another kind of exhaustion point, you have to pay attention to that because on the way back down, that's what matters. And maybe it doesn't pull back at all that day, but at least you have those levels, just like ATR, that you can use for the next day. Same thing with Tilray that we talked about last week. Same thing with MDVL. So anyway, that's about it on VERU. I know I had a lot of questions, and we can always go over some of that stuff. You guys saw all my charts from last week on VERU. So I hope that you guys traded it well, but for those of you guys that need that little kick and, the non-sugarcoat, stop making excuses and stop doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. You're not going to make it. Let's see. A couple other questions that have come in. Most of them were about VERU. Dawson said lots of stuff with solid higher than average volume is moving. If I focus out everywhere, I screw them all up. Narrowed the focus to 3 main ideas, but can't help but feel that I'm underperforming. It is what it is. You know what? Someone's always going to make more. Someone's always going to have a better trade. I narrow it down to 2. I only try to size 2 names per day. I might trade 10 or 12, but I'm really only zoned in and focused on 2. And, look, if I get out of 1, then maybe I'll, go to a third. But I really try to focus all of my effort on just 2. Because same thing you said, you look back and you feel like you underperformed. Sure. But you're always going to do that. And I'd rather you look back and feel like you underperformed than look back and say, oh, I should have left that one alone. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have traded that one more. There's so many things that are going on right now Market's not going anywhere. Volatility's not going anywhere. So it's really just about staying on, all cylinders as long as you can. And one of the things that I personally need to be aware of, I take a lot more time off when I'm just cruising. Summer's coming, and I always do something stupid before summer. So I want to be ultra aware coming into the summer months that, I continue to have proper risk management, have that max stop on your account. We talk about having the max stop all the time. Per ticker, personally, I don't like to have a max stop for like a dollar value on my account, but I like a max stop on a particular ticker. And then that's it, you're shut off. Because what happens is you get stopped out, and then you're like, all right, I can make it back. You go in the same size, and then it goes another 2 or 3 or 4 points against you, and you end up, crushing your account. So this is all about capital preservation, and you got to keep your money. And jumping in front of those names like this past week, it's going to take your money. And that could have been the one shot that you had. What clues or tactics can be most helpful flipping a bias? Number one struggle lately. Mostly because I'm dropping my original bias, but the lack of fortitude to go forward, resulting in sitting out, missing opportunities, hanging on to the original bias too long. Yeah, that's a big thing. I talked about this pre-market the last couple days. Forcing a bias to play out. And sometimes, for example, with VERU, maybe it plays out pre-market, right? So you come in, you have this plan that you think was going to happen off the open, but it happens pre-market. It's okay to adjust your thoughts. It's okay to change your mind. VERU, I thought it was going to stay pretty heavy throughout the day on Thursday, right? But then we saw it getting trappy. And I said, they're trapping here. It appears very trappy. And obviously be cautious that I'd rather be basically hands off and let everybody else kind of get blown out before participating again. And 10 minutes later, we see it into a circuit halt, right? So that's adapting. That's letting go of your bias and adjusting on the fly. And I think the easiest thing to do is to draw lines at prior resistance level, prior support level. And I think that's going to help you, determine whether or not you're being biased or if you are making the right decision. So try throwing on those lines on your charts. Some people say they see it, but they won't put them on their charts. I try to help a couple people. Put them on there. It will remind you. And then when you bring it back up, they'll still be there and you'll see them. It will remind you. It will help you. It'll also remind you as it gets towards these higher levels that you probably don't want to be aggressive anticipating anything to happen. You'd rather see it prove. A lot of times, ATER comes back to a key level, comes under it. Everybody just pile drives in, right? First test back to that key level, right through, like water, no problem, right? So you want to see it come back through, fail, come back, fail. Most people don't let that happen, and that's why you end up getting bent, forcing a bias that you expected. So anyway, let's get right into the scan, and that's that. All right, so as always, I'm not a financial advisor. These are not buy or sell recommendations. This is for educational and informational purposes only. I'm going to go over a little bit of ATER just to kind of show you again. I got a lot of great feedback last week with going over the Tilray, the MDVL, kind of how to anticipate those lines. These are not things that are done in hindsight. They're areas of interest, with only so much of the chart that you can see, right, at present day. It doesn't mean that they're going to peak out there. It doesn't mean that they're going to stop there. And, you might be adding lines throughout the day, but at least once it crosses back under, then you know that it's finally failed to follow through. It's finally had a lower high. Sometimes just drawing those lines is a lot cheaper than add and try to figure out the top. It's a very cheap way to save money without paying for that information yourself. So, for me, one of the first things that I always kind of look at is where was it hanging around? And so, we know from the prior days, this 535 level And, this isn't information that you have, after the fact. Yeah, you can see that it shows that. But you can see here, this range right over here, you can see that 535 mattered. But you can't see the rest of the chart yet. So then you zoom out, and now you can see, let's say you can only see this amount, right? 535 base, 535 base. So you want to always assume that 535 is going to base. That way in the morning, the next morning, if it flushes down to 520, you probably want to assume that they're going to save 535. It'll save you a lot of money. And if they don't, it stays heavy, that's fine. At that point, I might join the trade. But the key is that a lot of people make emotional decisions because they have fear of missing the trade. And so right over here, you've got this 9.15 right off open, comes down 535, holds to the penny. That information we knew from the day before just by drawing a simple line. It's not rocket science. And then throughout the rest of the day, you start to kind of find other areas that would potentially make a good area of interest. So for me, I went and put them at, I think it was 585. And then I like to put it across, just the area that you see a lot of action going, whether it's 585 and 610, 620. I typically look for where is most of the action, not necessarily the top print, right? So you could draw a line and put it at, say 620 and say, oh, that was the top. But for me, I want to see where most of the volume is. You can see that there's a little bit of a base forming at 610. You can see that the overall action is peaked at 610, but there are a couple times where it goes over it. So that becomes that secondary line. And then, I'll show you this one after, but so you can zoom out and you can start to see how it will help you with the exhaustion levels. When a little bit higher, let me see here, 625. And this is just simple stuff to help you be a little bit more patient, right? So all of these levels that I had posted, busted, right? So not once did it go up and fail without confirming and actually holding. So for example, it exhausted out the 625 line, came back under 610, flushed down, and it held that prior line. So not once did we get a secondary fail, right? It came right back into that prior level of support. So anytime that I'm over a key level and it's coming into it, I want to assume that that level is going to hold. It's a great spot to either cover all or at least some of your position so that you're not emotionally attached to the trade. And then you can see it start to exhaust out. Then we finally had a fail, right? Comes back under VWAP, fails there, hanging around, comes back up, finally does not break back over those prior highs of the 625, comes back, fails, tries to test, fails. And once again, you should assume that 535 is going to hold. Whether or not it dips under it, that's fine. That happens sometimes. But there's a good chance that they're going to save that 535 line. Just by having those lines on your chart will help you stay clear of add, and let everybody exhaust out. Keep in mind, when these moves happen, everybody's doing the same thing as you. So you want to let them pay for that information, show you whether or not it's time. You're not going to miss this trade over 10 or 20 or 30 cents. It's going to be a $1 or $2 type trade. You have to think about that. A lot of times, you coming in late is actually going to be probably 50 cents higher than when you originally wanted to short it. So anyway, higher the better. When I get prepared for the weeks ahead, typically I would say I would want to push 580s to 610 off the open. I would react to that. If it starts to form a base and starts to grind, I would size out. But ideally, the goal is you want some type of push towards those prior lines and then fail to follow through. The area at which I would be patient is under that 535 level. I would assume that it's going to hold that, but if it starts to peak 535, at that point, I would start to get interested in being patient. One thing to kind of note, when you want to see these prior levels test, you can see that it cracks 625, right? The first test right through it goes right through like water, like I was talking about. So you want to see it come back and actually fail and actually reject at 625. That is the tell that, hey, it's finally failing to follow through. The difference is, easy short, sure. Add in, right? Add into a winner. No problem. Slam down. Gonna add a whole bunch. Guess what? You just ruined your average. Now you're freaking out right here. Okay, you got away with it. Now you're freaking out. You end up covering here. So the key is just let everybody else figure that out, and then slowly but surely scale into the trade from there. MDVL, higher the better. This one used the levels that we knew from the prior day. We went over this one last week. 220 being a key level and 250s. That's easy just to type, just put these in. So 220. That was where the trap was formed. And then 250 was where the exhaustion was. So if you guys remember, right over here, you had a lot of action over here. And then this morning right over here, 220 line was basing. It flushed. We went over this and then squeezed right up. So you can see that 220 trap. So we know that 220 was that prior base and 250 was that exhaustion line. So when that happened on Thursday, first time around, we've got that 250 exhaustion, comes back, assume this is going to hold, comes back, fails to get back over 250, and fades off. At which point, when it reclaims at 220, you want to be obviously hands off. It reclaimed the key level, key trend. This one, I'd love to see some kind of crazy move. It came back really, really fast. Key levels for me, 220, 250s. It ramped up a little bit after hours. I'd love to see it kind of fade back, trap, and then a potential breakout, some sort of squeeze. We'll see what happens, but one step at a time. Definitely an interesting one. I would love to see it, go nice and high, so we have obviously a short. But I'm not coming in with a short bias. I do think that this could potentially still, take shorts out for a little bit of a ride. But I think they need to retrap a little bit. INDO was a killer one. This is an example of always staying familiar with charts. Every night I do scans. You start to see things. You get to see where they are at in their moves. So you could see that this was completely, coming apart, unwinding. And, I had recently seen this chart. Same thing, another one that I've been watching, SKYH, right? So that when and if this goes, I can react that much faster because I already know what it looks like. So I know if it ramps up a buck, I'm okay with chasing it, as long as it's got volume and a trend and things like that because I know what it looks like. I knew, I've been waiting for that day for it to come. Same thing with INDO. So that's why you saw me get long on Thursday. And I did not expect it to work this well. I got long in this 16 area over here. It was consolidating over here. It was consolidating. I made it to about 21 and change or so. Then I ended up getting short a little bit in the 24 area. And I covered around the 24.80, 25, 25.20 area. Ended up coming back in, but I wasn't planning to hold anything overnight or do anything like that. So good opportunity. We should have a nice fade, maybe $3-4, something like that. Higher the better. Looking for failed follow through momentum. VERU, pretty clear support. And the level that we had talked about on Friday, pre-market, 1350s. And if you guys looked at the levels that I posted on Twitter on Thursday, I mean, it's crazy how well they held those. And you can see for my trades, you can see the levels on my chart, and you can see that they went each and every single time to those levels, exhausted through, and then slammed back down. It was as if they, were using those levels to squeeze folks out before, making them wish they had either sold or making them wish they hadn't covered real fast. But look for, similarities between the moves, and you can see where it's holding, and obviously 1350 was a key spot over there. And that dates back all the way over to here where the squeeze started, and what level did they support? 1350s. So again, all the levels that I had put were ahead of time. It was early in the day. You could see the tweet so that you can put those on your chart and see how it reacts to those levels. So I'm going to be extra cautious with this one. I feel like everybody has that FOMO. They don't want to miss it, right? Like MULN. MULN, same deal. When it has this kind of volume, it always takes a little bit longer than you think. Everybody's already on the same page. Everybody's already doing the same thing. So they know that. And they're going to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. It doesn't mean it's going to run. It just means it's going to rotate and rotate and rotate. Just like MULN did. Then when everybody stops talking about it, guess what? It starts to fade off. But everybody knew here, and everybody knew here. But it's just difficult to do that with size because they know. And they will do just enough to get you out. So the key for me is, once again, on a VERU, be open to changing, your bias, your thoughts, but higher the better, and hopefully we have a nice opportunity there. Failed follow-through setups I have is LEXX. This was fantastic on Thursday, and a couple of people had asked me about this one. We talked about the goalie pull, right? So you've got exhaustion move. I guess I should use my mouse. You've got exhaustion move. You've got exhaustion move. And you've got this kind of steady kind of grind. This time you've got, a lot of consolidation over here. And as soon as they break that level, what happens, right? You've got a huge candle right over here. Almost $500,000. Next one straight down, another $500,000. And, at that point it's done. So this would be an example of a goalie pull where they use that stop, they trigger everybody's stop, and then they walk. So that was a nice one to be involved in. It wasn't one of my top two watches, so I had a great entry, and I was just kind of letting it do its thing. My plan was to scale in a little bit later. I ended up scaling in after it cracked over here as well. So I had some basically four, I think 50 to 470s. Then I had added some, and then I added some more, and I pretty much covered. You can see I had posted my chart as well, so you can see how I navigated that one. BCTX was an example of the retail run-up, one of my favorites. One of the interesting things too, you can see this day over here where it had blown out, had a little bit of a squeeze, it kind of went right back up to that 12 range and rejected. But if I think the pre-market was, 1247, the pre-market was 1250s. So if you look back right over here, pretty much the same top as that breakout day on the daily. So once again, a little bit of a looking left kind of situation. FDA or fast track, whatever it was, anticipated, expected. Everybody buys a headline. Oh, it's positive, it's positive. It's already baked in. Everybody was already expecting it. But you don't know that until it comes out and you start to see the price action. You can see that it's clear as day. There's 1250 is exhausting out all the sellers, and they're selling into the headline. So you saw that I got short on that name, and it was a beautiful unwind. Great entry pre-market, 1250s scaled into that winner. Textbook, sell the news, while everybody is like, why is this happening? So always be cautious of those walk-ups. And let's get on to the next one. And I should probably tell you what I was thinking for the week ahead, rather than just story time. BCRX. No, not BCRX. BCTX. So higher the better. I still think it wants to check back into VWAP. So far, every rebound has failed nicely, and it's been a nice opportunity off all the pushes. However, the day that you get comfortable, you put some on, and it pulls back a little bit, and then it goes to another high, and then you add a little bit more, and then it pulls back, goes to another high. You have to recognize that, because that's the day that you're going to give a whole bunch back. So it's fine to dabble and scale into that winner, but the day that it's kind of not breaking down, recognize that before it takes you out. BTU, Nothing that I am, short bias on. I just want to watch it. I just want to stay familiar with it because at some point this is going to be a great trade, just like CLF was, just like X was. And by staying familiar, you'll be able to get that day, just like LAC, over here, and same deal over here. Doesn't mean long term, I think BTU is going to pull back, but once it starts to overextend, it starts to come on my radar because that's what I'm good at as a trader personally. That's what I look for. When it starts to overextend, opportunity starts to present itself. That's when I come into the trade. Last couple next. Just a chart that looks nice. You can see all the wicks getting bought. We're at the top end of this little breakout here. So I'd be watching for a possible breakout. LYRA. This was an idea last Sunday for a continuation play. It worked out great. I hope somebody made more money than I did. I traded it one day and unfortunately fumbled this one, but it worked out pretty good. So the person that was kind of asking the question about forcing a bias, right? This TCAP move. Great breakout. I had been participating in all of this move. Then I had sold some into this move. Then I had been rebuying some. And each time that it was ripping towards those highs, locking some in. But, I still got caught with some, which, sucks. It would have been nice to be at the highs. However, it's that reminder, don't force a bias. And every time, yeah, it's nice you have a good average. Yeah, it would be nice to hold this to the moon. But when you're coming into those resistance levels, the reason I say be smart or it's fine to, lock in around the core and those kind of things is because you're going to have days like this where it doesn't do what you expect. And these days are a lot easier if you had locked in over 4. Doesn't mean locking it all in, doesn't mean selling it all. It just means that you've got some locked in so that this move is not that big of a deal and you can make a more kind of sane decision. Do I think it's going to continue or do I think that was all the momentum? And you either can take it off or you can potentially, average in if you wanted some more to replace what you had sold. But at least you're not freaking out because you have too many, you paid too high, you chased into the breakout or something silly like that. So anyway, see y'all in the room on Monday. I hope that this market continues at the capacity that it has. For me, the reason that I like this type of market, and it's been like this for months, almost a year plus now, is it's not all the low float type trades. Those are the ones that get me in trouble. Those are the ones that I barely even touch these days. I like real volume, real liquidity, real action. And as long as we continue to have that, it's going to be a great, great year. So I hope you guys are all trading well. And remember, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, is the definition of insanity. Take control of your trades. Realize what you're doing. And I guarantee that there is 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 times before that move happens that you knew to be out. And it's about listening to that and realizing that that's going to prevent you from having these really poor mistakes. So get a hold of it. And anyway, we'll see you in the room on Monday.